Ladies and gentlemen, when I was about 8 years old, I can remember my godfather visiting and giving me my very, very first computer game. It's probably the first computer game in the world, if you think how old I am. And it was called the Octopus game. It was a little thing about this big, and you had to get past the tentacles of an octopus to go and get some treasure. There were only 2 buttons on it, you understand? After that, we had the era of Pac-Man and Donkey Kong and the games arcades of my youth. Obviously, this will mean nothing to you, and video games nowadays are vastly more sophisticated, which means also that they have spawned some debate about whether they can cause young people to behave more violently because they are desensitized to violence from the violence that they see on screen when they play all these games where you have to go and kill police officers or whatever it is. Not saying anything about recent events, but games where you kill police officers, I don't know. So there's certainly been some debate about video games and violence. And of course there has also been debate about whether video games cause addiction, whether young people can get addicted. I say young people. It could be middle-aged men. It could be me, middle-aged women. Now, I don't know about the link between video games and violence. I think the evidence is inconclusive so far, but I certainly think that excessive screen time can be problematic. And again, I'm thinking about young people, particularly because I have young children, and I don't really want them to spend hours a day using tablets, computers, or playing games. I think for a start that can have implications for how they socialize, or whether they socialize at all, or end up simply socializing with a computer, which I think would be a bad thing. And I also think there are potential consequences on young people's fitness. Because the research shows that children don't exercise enough, they don't get outdoors enough, and if they're sitting around playing computer games all the time, I think there is a relatively clear link with obesity and other morbidities of that type. Which is why I had mixed feelings when both of my children's schools sent them home with usernames and passwords for various apps and computer games to improve their mathematics and to improve their reading. There are all sorts of apps available these days with names like Mathletics or SumDog. And I can see the advantage on the one hand, which is that it can make learning fun, so that instead of sitting there and doing a whole page full of boring sums, you have something colourful on screen, and it's a lot more fun for the children. But at the same time, it can be very competitive. Some of these games are set up so that you compete against other kids around the world, in America, let's say. And that definitely doesn't work for my children. They find it totally stressful. And instead of focusing on doing the maths, they're going, why has he reached the top of the tower? Why am I only halfway up? And then they burst into tears and have tantrums. So it's completely counterproductive. But also I was quite dismayed and shocked perhaps to see that my daughter's computer package, whatever it's called, Active Learning, also includes a forum where the children can post things and the teacher can answer, and a sort of rudimentary form of email because they can send each other messages. Now, my daughter is 6. I don't want her doing that stuff. I don't think she needs to. If she wants to talk to her friends, she can talk to them at school. So I have very mixed feelings about these well-meaning, I think, well-intended apps and computer games. The idea is to improve the children's skills, but at the same time we go on and on about the problem of addiction in teenagers. Well, I see a link somehow between asking 6-year-olds to use computers all the time and then the fact that we have teenagers who are addicted to using computers. but I'm just a bolshy parent. Anyway, I was very interested to read yesterday about a new app which apparently gets children outdoors. It's called Pokémon GO, I think. And the idea is that you go and look for these little computer monsters like Pikachu, but in real life locations. So I suppose there must be a GPS component involved somewhere, that the app is sending you to a particular place in a city or to a particular beach. It's only available in the US so far, I understand. But in its pre-release phase, it's been a runaway success, and there are already 7 million users of this app. And the share price of the company that's produced it has risen by 25% because it's already proving so popular. Now, I'm sure you can tell probably what I'm going to say about this app. Yes, I think it's a good thing that it's getting children and young people outdoors. And the users whom I heard interviewed this morning were saying things like, oh, well, here we all are on the beach. There were several hundred people here yesterday looking for whichever little monster it was. And it was really sociable because we were all chatting and going, have you found that monster? And have you found that monster? Do I class that as real socializing? I don't think so. I think it's a sort of weird, superficial form of interacting with each other, where all we're talking about is the technology or the app. And we're not enjoying the outdoors for what it is. It's just part of a computer game. So I'm not particularly keen on this app. I think if I was forced to combine technology with sports or the outdoors in order to get my children outside, then I would prefer geocaching. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's a sort of high-tech form of a treasure hunt where you use the GPS coordinates to go and find a little hidden treasure. You can leave a little piece of paper to say you've been there. But that, to my mind, is a bit more enjoying the outdoors with some technology thrown in, as opposed to enjoying technology with a tiny bit of the outdoors thrown in. But frankly, the lower tech, the better, as far as I'm concerned. And rather than geocaching, I would even prefer my children to go orienteering, where the technology that they'll have to use will be a map and a compass. And personally, I don't even have a sat-nav in my car. I think we should learn to read maps and not rely so much on technology. Thank you.